Hey guys, Benjamin Mays here with George's Cameras. We're down here at Minamara Headland in Kiama, and we're about to be shooting the sunset. The sun's getting low now and getting some seascape action in. And we're going to be testing out some filters from the NiSi Advanced Filter Kit, getting some Grad NDs, some neutral density filters, and the Landscape CPL. So we're going to head on over and shoot some nice seascape action. That looks like it's getting more and more wet and wild. So I think we'll shoot this channel here. Currently I just have the circular polarizer on, and it's doing a really nice job of just cutting through the reflections in the water and cutting through that foam there. The sun's just starting to go down now. So what I'm gonna do is put on my Grad ND filter. I'm gonna be going for our soft grad. So what these graduated filters do is they darken the top half of the image or wherever you slide it down onto. And so in doing so, I'm getting a balanced exposure in camera rather than needing to blend in Photoshop later. I'm just going to try getting a portrait photo of the same composition. It's quite nice, which is allowing us to see a little bit more of that sky. So like I said before, this graduated filter that I'm using is the medium kind of transition from dark to clear, and it's the ND8. So it's a pretty light one. You can get darker for when you're shooting a much harsher contrast between land and sky. But since this is a pretty soft scene, a softer graduated filter does the job pretty fine. And so the intuitive thing about this filter system is that you can actually twist it depending on what the horizon warrants. So if your horizon's a bit of on a slant, say you're in the hillside, and you've got a hill on your left and it kind of slopes down on your right, you can tilt it so that it appropriately darkens the sky there rather than just automatically top down. Here, because it's just a flat sea, we can shoot straight up, but it's really nice to have that flexibility in those kind of less standard circumstances when it comes to your horizon. What I'm also going to try to do now is put in our 3-stop ND filter. And what that's going to do is allow us to slow down the shutter speed more to get more of a little bit of a misty effect. So I'm going to slot that in there. So what that will allow me to do is extend my exposure up to about 3 seconds instead of 1/5 of a second. Just getting some nice misty water coming through there, a little bit more streaking, and just generally flattening out the exposure. So I'm shooting this composition at 24mm. Seascape shooting doesn't always have to be at the widest angle possible, because the headland out there is quite far away. So when you zoom all the way out, it's a very small thing on the horizon. So at 24mm, I'm compressing it in a little bit more, so the headland is a little bit more prominent. It's excluding things that I don't want to be in the frame, and overall just makes for a stronger comp than automatically zooming out all the way. Just finished up sunset here at Minamara Headland. Some nice pink pastels over the horizon now. It's going into blue hour, but now we're going to be heading over to Bombo Quarry to shoot some stars and astrophotography. The Milky Way is in a really nice position over there at the moment. So we're going to check it out over there and shoot some stars with the NiSi Natural Night Filter. So as we walk into Bombo Quarry tonight, there's a bit of a layer of cloud around that we weren't expecting, that was not on the forecast. If the moon was out, then it could have created a pretty cool effect. The moon tends to shine through those clouds and create a real kind of ethereal glow. But there's no moon tonight, just Milky Way, so we'll have to see how it turns out. But nevertheless, we'll be testing the natural night filter, and the clouds will I believe will show the effects of the filter really nicely, so you can see the clear difference, because those clouds tend to really catch the light pollution. So regardless of what we get, I think it'll be a good night of shooting. So for the shot that we're going to be shooting tonight, just aiming to capture the classic kind of two large basalt kind of walls with the gap in the middle. Usually if there's no clouds right now, the Milky Way would be shining straight through the middle. Not sure how much visibility we'll get, but we'll shoot it nonetheless. So what the NiSi Natural Night Filter does is it removes the unwanted wavelengths of light that are most common in light pollution. So light pollution, when you're shooting near any sort of population, where there's a city or anything like that, you can get incandescent street lights polluting the night sky. Anyone that shoots at night will be very familiar with it. You can get quite an unwanted yellow glow. It's not very pleasant in the images. And so what this filter does is, that we'll be using, is it cuts out those wavelengths and it creates a more natural kind of color and depiction of the night sky. And yeah, it gives you a cleaner image that doesn't have that really dominant yellow glow kind of polluting the horizon. So that's what we'll be experimenting with tonight. So we've just finished up our shoot here at Bombo Quarry for some astrophotography. We're now going to jump to tomorrow morning where we've had a chance to edit the files, have a look at them, and we're going to do a little bit of comparison of the results. So it's now the following morning from our shoot at Bombo Quarry and Minamara Headland. So we've just had a little bit of a play around with the files and to see what we can do with them, and also just to show the difference between using that natural night filter and not using it, and just there was quite an extreme difference that we noticed. So we'll run through the Minamara shot now to start with. So looking at the Minamara shot that we got at sunset last night, we can see that this final edited file is a really balanced exposure. We can see the sky and the water are pretty even now, and we've got the right sort of shutter speed in the water without blowing out the sky detail. And so, yeah, that combination of the circular polarizer and the medium grad filter really just allowed us to cut out reflections where we wanted them to be gone, and then also, just helped us retain those bright cloud details and everything. And so this has been processed since in Lightroom and some Photoshop work as well, which is just my sort of standard process when I'm creating my photos. But what this grad filter allowed us to do was, rather than my usual method of blending exposures, is that it helps preserve all that nice sky detail, especially in those wispy high clouds. That meant, it was just a much simpler sort of process, and just kept it all in the one file instead of having to work with multiple layers, syncing them up, blending them in, and all of that. So we can see, those orange colors came out quite nicely, contrasted with the nice blues in the water. So that's the result of that circular polarizer combined with the grad filter. It just simplifies the process. If you don't have anything jutting above that horizon, it works really nicely. So as I was talking about last night, what we were using to help balance out our exposure for sunset and Minamara Headland was NiSi's medium graduated ND filter. And so what that filter allows you to do is darken a portion of the photo rather than the entire photo. And so this really helps with balancing out the exposure of, say, when you have a bright sky, but then an unaffected, slightly darker foreground. It just allows you to, in camera, create a balanced exposure result. That means that you don't have to worry about any blending fuss later on. And so the one that we used had a medium tapered edge of ND filter towards a clear bottom. And so that's kind of the middle transition line between their soft ND and their hard grad ND. And so that's really good for shooting a flat horizon when you've got maybe a little bit of things sticking up above the horizon. And just really, really good for shooting sunsets, sunrises, and just any sort of frame where you need to darken that top portion of the photo and not really affect much poking into the skyline. So we'll move on to the Bombo Quarry shots that we got at some Astro for. So there was a little bit of cloud, but what that cloud helps us to do is actually see the difference in the filter really effectively. So in these files, we've just applied the same settings across the board, just not much of a difference here. And what I've bumped up the blue calibration saturation slider just to help us see the difference more clearly with the filter and the effect it creates. So right here is our shot with the natural night filter. And you can see the blues and just the tones in the sky in general are really nice. They're a cool sort of temperature. And you've got little highlights of yellow in the cloud here, but you see through to the purples and blues of the Milky Way behind it. And so overall, it's just really cut out that light pollution really effectively. You can see here, if I just go all the way to the top, that our temperature is 5,550. A tint is -3, so I shifted that just a tiny bit towards magenta to give it a slightly nicer color in the blues, and then just basic adjustments from there. So NiSi's Natural Night filter is their first filter that's kind of exclusive for night photography, which is, you know, different to your NDs and polarizers, which are really created for daytime photography. And so what this filter does is it blocks the most common wavelengths of light pollution from your photos, because these forms of light pollution from street lamps and mercury vapor and all of that can block your camera from seeing the night sky properly. And so what this filter does is it cuts through those most common forms of light pollution and allows your camera to see through that to a more natural sort of color and less hazy version of the night sky. And now if we go across to the same composition taken a couple of minutes afterwards, just after we removed the natural night filter and then shot with the exact same settings, that is the huge difference that shooting without the filter makes. So you can see here, 5,550, -3, saturation 100, and there's no work in the color sliders at all here. So that is just purely the difference that filter makes. And you can see how much yellow sort of light pollution makes its way into the scene here. And that's not because of a difference in temperature, because they're identical across both the frames. That is just, just all light pollution coming from the neighboring sort of town of Kiama, just across from the headland. And so, yeah, I was pretty amazed by how huge of a difference there was. I was expecting there to be a difference, but not quite that much. This was my first time using the filter as well. And yeah, it's just cutting out all of that yellow incandescent light, just kind of reflecting into the clouds. And so, yeah, you can see how effectively that works. Thanks for watching, everyone. That brings us to the end of today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon below to be notified whenever we upload a new video. If you're interested in any of the products we use today, then check out the link in the description below for more details. And in the comments below, just feel free to let us know what your favorite NiSi filter to use is and why. Be sure to head over to our Instagram as well. We do frequent giveaways and post regularly, and I'll see you guys in the next one.